Welcome to Facts TV News, where everything is true. Groundsman murder in St. Thomas. The police in St. Thomas are probing the shooting death of Ricardo Crossley along Babylon Lane in Seaford last night. The police report that about 10:40 p.m., residents heard explosions and raised an alarm. On the arrival of the police, the 31-year-old groundsman, who is from Blacksmith Lane in Seaford, was found on a roadway with gunshot wounds to the head. The body was removed from the scene. Security guard charged for a bank explosion in Portland. 31-year-old security guard Calvin Hill has been charged in connection with the ATM explosion at the Scotiabank in Port Antonio, Portland last month. Hill, who remains in hospital under police guard, was charged on Thursday with arson, housebreaking, and creating public mischief. In law, a bank is deemed a counting house, and that's where the charge of housebreaking was laid. The value of damage to the building is still being assessed, while the quantity of cash stolen is still being audited by the bank and Burnham Security Company Limited, said Commanding Officer for the Portland Police Division Superintendent Kenneth Chin. It is reported that about 4:10 a.m. on April 23rd, a loud explosion was heard coming from the direction of the bank. It was later discovered that the bank's two ATMs were destroyed during the fiery blast, which also shattered glass windows and doors at the financial institution, which also damaged the interior of the bank. Hill was later found at the rear end of the bank with what happened to be a broken leg and was bleeding profusely. He was taken into custody and transported to a medical facility for treatment. Teacher in St. Anne arrested on allegations of sexual misconduct. A male teacher at a prominent high school in St. Anne has been taken into custody on allegations of sexual misconduct involving a student. It is being alleged that the teacher made sexual contact with a grade 10 male student. The police have confirmed the incident. Reports are that the police went to the school on Thursday and took the teacher into custody. Motorists being diverted to new alignment along Kent Avenue in St. James. The National Works Agency NWA is advising that road users traversing Kent Avenue between the Iron Shore Main Road and the White House community in St. James will be diverted onto a newly created alignment. The change took effect today. The roadway has been realigned to facilitate the expansion of the runway at the Sangster International Airport. Community Relations Officer for the NWA's Western Region, Janet Ricketts, says that NWA and MBJ Airport Limited are now in the final stages of completion of the realignment works. In the meantime, the NWA is advising that motorists may experience delays as they traverse the section of roadway leading from the Westgate Shopping Center to the Portobello community in St. James. This is a result of ongoing works to rehabilitate the targeted section of the corridor. Appeal Court reduces parole eligibility for rape murder convict. The parole eligibility has been reduced for one of four men who in 2005 abducted, shot and dumped three women in a pit in Greenwich Town, St. Andrew. The Court of Appeal this week granted an application for full credit for the time spent in custody before trial for 34-year-old Chadwick Garden. Garden was convicted in 2010 along with three men for the fatal shooting of the two women. He was given the death penalty because he was reported to be the mastermind behind the double murder, as he was the one who was armed with a gun. Garden appealed, and in December 2012, the Court of Appeal set aside the death sentence and sent back his case to the Supreme Court for resentencing. He was sentenced to life imprisonment and ordered to serve 27 years before he could be eligible for parole. Attorney at law Garlick from the law firm Knight, Jr. and Samuels argued this week that there was an omission and/or oversight by the appellate court to give full credit to the applicant for the time he spent on remand pending his trial. She submitted that generally, a convicted individual's legal entitlement to be credited for any time spent in custody before trial was set, principle enshrined in the Constitution. She argued that, in the interest of justice and fairness, the applicant was only asking the court recognize the time already spent to be correctly recorded. The court upheld the submissions and ordered that Garden would become eligible for parole after serving 23 years, 4 months, and 4 days instead of 27 years. The success of this application reinforces the rights of the individuals to their personal liberty, and thus even in the face of a conviction, full credit must generally be given to that person for the time they spent in custody, the lawyer commented. Garden, along with Desmond Kennedy, Alton Heath, and Marlon Duncan, all of Greenwich Town addresses, were convicted of the murder of Katrina Webb and Simone Vernon, both 20 years old. 3 women were abducted from a bar at Newport West and taken to a playfield in Greenwich Town, where they were raped by men, including the abductors. The women were shot and dumped in a pit. One of the women managed to crawl out of the pit, and a report was made to the police. The Court of Appeal dismissed the men's appeal against their convictions in December 2012. The bodies of the women were never found despite searches, which included the use of underwater camera technology. Troubling, JFJ calls for reform following altercations involving soldiers and residents. Human rights lobby group Jamaicans for Justice (JFJ) says it is deeply troubled by the recent videos emerging of altercations between civilians and members of the Jamaica Defense Force (JDF) in Denham Town. A new run of turbulence erupted on Thursday afternoon as a pregnant woman clashed with soldiers, the second major conflict in the crime-plagued Western Kingston community, which has been under security blanket for almost 5 years. The latest allegations is a second abuse claimed in consecutive days after soldiers were recorded in amateur videos striking a woman and a man amid escalating tensions between civilians and the army. JFJ says it is concerned about the excessive use of violence meted out to residents, in particular women. Regardless of the situation, there are rules of engagement that agents of the state are required to abide by when dealing with citizens, it asserted. The organization is contending that the actions of the soldiers run counter to the very message of the state in reducing violence against women. How could a soldier who is trained for a conflict and armed with a rifle deem it appropriate to shove an unarmed woman, kick another who appears to be pregnant, point a gun in her face, or attempt to use his gun to hit her? That display is unfortunate and is suggestive of a wider societal issue of gender-based violence, even among those who are expected to uphold the law, said a spokesperson in a statement. While members of the security forces must be able to defend themselves if their lives are threatened, proportionality must always be considered, and efforts made by said state agents to de-escalate tense situations, the spokesperson added. JFJ says it is disturbing that there are members of the public who believe the response of the soldiers was warranted. There clearly need to be social norm change as part of the violence reduction campaign being championed by stakeholders including government and academia, as well as a rethinking of how some members of the public view the marginalized poor and those from low-income communities. The human rights group is arguing that incidents once again put the spotlight on the manner in which the security forces are deployed for an extended time within poor communities as part of the government's thrust to fight crime. With INDECOM Independent Commission of Investigations 2020 to 2021 statistics showing a rise in incidents of excessive force involving the JDF, we remain concerned about the effects of enhanced security measures. While we understand the complex nature of our crime problem and the difficulties faced in stemming said problem, we urge the government and the security forces to comprehensively review how the crime-fighting strategies can have less damage effects on entire communities. Further, JFJ believes that the country and all lawmakers must also examine the issue of the trust deficit that exists between civilians and members of the security forces. The videos display the inevitable consequences of deploying soldiers into poor and marginalized communities for such an extended time. It must be noted that residents within the communities have faced a history of abuse by security forces, and the altercation is an unfortunate outcome of same. JFJ is joining calls for a swift and thorough investigation of the incidents and allegations of abuse. Have welcomed news that INDECOM has already commenced on investigation into the matter. The organization believes that at this time, it would also be appropriate for the JDF, which is also conducting its own investigation, to clarify the status of the officers in question, as it believes that those involved must be removed from frontline duty pending the outcome of the probe. It also wants the full report, once complete, to be made public in the interest of transparency. JLP's George Moody faces rejection in Angels Division. Sidelined by St. Catherine's Central Member of Parliament, Olivia Grange, to contest the Ensom City Division as the second-term municipal council, George Moody is now facing more rejection. A number of placard-bearing delegations from the Angels Division, where Moody has been given the nod to do battle against sitting two-term PNP councillor Patricia Harris, are resolute that they will not support his candidacy in the upcoming local government elections. The delegates and workers who staged a protest on Thursday while Local Government Minister Desmond McKenzie was touring housing developments in the division declare that they are settled on Horton Thompson, aka Tomo, who after 2 terms will not be contesting the Sydenham division because of an alleged fallout with Member of Parliament Dr. Andrew Wheatley. We need a councillor, and they bring in somebody who we don't want. We don't want Moody, we want Thompson. He applied some years ago and has been on the ground with us, and now we hear that the party is going with Moody. So what about Mr. Thompson? If it is Moody, no vote, no work, declared a spokesperson for the group. We have no mood for Moody. Tomo we want. If not Tomo, no vote. We have decided not to go against Tomo, so they need to address the issue. If we don't have a say to choose who we want, our finger will not dip in the ink, another delegate added. This is the second St. Catherine division where the process of selecting council candidates for the ruling JLP party has become a major issue. Recently, sitting throughout the division, Councillor William Sittle was given marching orders by the party, which led to his defection to the PNP, but not before berating the Jamaica's Labour Party process, which he described as undemocratic. 190 new COVID-19 cases in Jamaica, 1 death reported. The Ministry of Health and Wellness reported 191 new COVID-19 cases and 1 death on Friday, May 6, bringing the infection total to 130,787 and total deaths to 2,973. The new cases comprise 103 females and 88 males, with ages ranging from 20 days to 81 years. The cases were recorded in Kingston and St. Andrew 49, St. Anne 41, St. James 37, St. Catherine 20, Westmoreland 10, Trelawney and Manchester 9 each, Clarendon 6, St. Elizabeth 5, St. Mary 3, St. Thomas and Hanover 1 each. The deceased is a 72-year-old male from St. Catherine, whose death was previously under investigation. There were 106 recoveries in the last 24 hours, bringing the total to 84,150. Currently, 43 people are hospitalized, 11 of whom are moderately ill and 2 critically ill. Jamaica's positivity rate for the latest round of testing is 18.4%. Please remember to subscribe, like, share, and click the notification bell for daily updates.